Hi, and welcome to At Home Art Lessons with the Art Groupies. The Art Groupies help us develop great art habits. This guy here is Stretch. Stretch is going to teach us to take a risk, play and experiment, and try things that you've never done before. Explore. We're going to be exploring with color with our famous artist, Claude Monet. Claude Monet is one of my favorite Impressionist artists, and he loved to paint light. The piece of art that we are going to be inspired by is his painting of a landscape with a windmill and the fields of tulips that he saw in Holland. So these are actual pictures, photographs of tulips in their rows, and this is how the farmers grow them in Holland. And here's an actual windmill, and here are the people that work at the different fields, and this is where and how we get our tulips that you'll see around your neighborhood. So landscape is the type of art we're going to create today, and we're going to be inspired by Claude Monet's windmills. Now we're going to start this project with a horizon line. Okay, a horizon line is a line that separates the sky from the ground, and we're simply going to draw that. I think I'm going to bring it up here a little bit. So this art project is going to be a little bit more about the fields of tulips than the sky. I'm going to start this project using tempera paint. Tempera or acrylic paints, whichever you would like to use. If you don't have them, you can use watercolor paints, and you can also use food coloring. If you don't have any of that stuff, you can just color and draw with whatever medium materials you have. Now I'm going to use what we call double loading. So I dipped my paintbrush in the blue, and now I'm going to dip a little bit into the white and double load. Now Claude Monet created these beautiful landscapes that looked very serene and peaceful by dabbing his paintbrush. He would dab his color onto the paper or the canvas, and he would use short little brush strokes, and he would use lots of different colors. He was never impressed by the artists of the day that used dark colors and worked with history and religion. He wanted to paint with bright colors, and he wanted to paint everyday life and things that happened sometimes in the morning, things that happened in the afternoon, or even things that happened at sunset. He was impressed by the sun and how it hit different objects and different ways it fell on the land, and how things had a totally different feeling to it by the way the light hit the surroundings. So Claude Monet and light. He was very impressed with how light hit the objects, and he was the first Impressionist artist. They called him an Impressionist because his first painting that he had on exhibition was called Impression Sunrise. And the art critic thought he would be making fun of him by calling him an Impressionist, which at the time meant unfinished. But Claude Monet didn't care. He painted what he wanted to paint, and the name stuck, and he started to call himself an Impressionist. So there I painted my sky just by taking my brush and dabbing it into two colors and short paint strokes. We're now going to make the rows of the tulips. Now you might want to use your pastel and draw vertical lines. So we did a horizontal line before for the horizon line. Now we're going to draw some vertical lines for our rows of tulips. Now we're not going to use a paintbrush for this project for the tulips. We're going to use some other things. So if you have a sponge would be really cool to make our flowers. And all I did was I cut my sponge into a thin strip and I folded it, and I used a clothesline clip, and voila, I can dip and dab my paints into my color, get a couple different colors on there, and create a more natural looking flower than if we used a paintbrush. If you don't have sponges, you can also cut apart a dishcloth. I took the strip of the dishcloth and I wrapped it, and I used a hair tie and tied it to a fork, a plastic fork. And we can also use that by dipping that into the color and playing with that for our different rows of colors. If you don't have that available to you, you can use some Q-tips, and I tied with, again, a hair tie on a vegetable skewer that I had, and again, dip it in there, get some colors, and have fun creating your fields of tulips. The more color you use, the more exciting your piece will be. So you want to use tints of the color by adding white to it. You could also add maybe another color to it, maybe some orange in with that pink, and seeing the way a different color would work there. So whatever you have available to you, you want to try and create different rows of those tulips for your landscape. So I did my red. Now I'm not going to wipe off the paint because it'll be more exciting if I use that color on there, and it will change the color a little bit and make it look and appear more natural than if you just used one color. And again, you can use whatever type of instrument you have to create these more natural looking tulips. You could also just use a simple sponge that you could get at a craft store. I kind of like the look of my Q-tips because it gives a more natural appearance of round tulips. So I'm going to stick with that, and I'm going to add them into the painting. I'll add some more of that red in there, add some of that pink, and get my different rows of tulips. And it's okay if you don't get all of the color and have some of that white in the background, because that white will give the appearance of the light shining on the tulips. So there's my purple. Maybe I'll try some greens in there so it looks kind of like my flowers have some leaves on them. It gives it a little bit more natural look. Okay, let's try some yellow. If you want to add a yellow sun in your sky, you can do that also. Maybe add some clouds. You probably want to wait till your sky's a little dry so it doesn't blend in and turn your yellow sun into a green sun. So I'll take some orange, add some red to that, put some orange over here. The more color you have, the more exciting your piece will look. And again, Claude Monet, he would get up nice and early in the morning, maybe around sunrise. He would set up his easel and he would begin to paint. And then he would pull out another canvas and paint the same exact image, but maybe at lunchtime when the sun was at its highest. Again, it would change the entire way the picture looked. It was amazing, and that's what he loved about painting outside and painting with light. He just thought it was amazing how the same exact image, the same landscape, would appear completely different by the way the sun hit it. Fill in one more spot down here. Maybe I'll use that red again. Fill in that whole area. I'm running out of time here. And again, I think I'll go back in and add some of those green looking petals for the leaves. But try the different sponges and the other different forks wrapped up. See which one you like the best. You might like a different object, and it might appear completely different if you also wet it a little bit. I used all my things nice and dry. So I'm going to use, maybe I'll try my fork this time and put some greenage for the foliage in there. Make it appear a little bit more natural. So voila. Now this is going to be considered a mixed medium landscape because now I have all my tulips and my sky finished. I'm now going to add the windmill, and I'm going to do that with regular colored paper. Don't want to do that while my painting is wet. I'm going to want to do that while it's dry. So I took my Q-tips and I used some white paint to add some clouds when the sky was dry, and now I'm going to use some colored paper to make my windmill. I'm going to use 3 different colors. I'm going to draw on the shape of the windmill, the base of the windmill, and it kind of is a triangle, but instead of coming up to a point, it's going to be a flat top. So I'll go ahead and use my scissors and cut the base out for my windmill. Now you don't have to worry about making this look realistic because that's not what the Impressionist artist wanted. Cameras came out at the time of them creating art, so they didn't need to make things look realistic because, quite frankly, the camera did that. They wanted to paint the impression of what they saw when they painted outside. So I'm going to paint a triangle for the top of my windmill, a little bit bigger. And now I'm going to paint, cut out the 4 different pieces of the windmill. This is what they used for energy and to move the water around for their fields. So there are my different, I'm going to overlap my triangle on top, and it's okay if it goes off the edge of the paper, or maybe move that over a little bit, and your windmill arms could go any way you like. Have them all meet in the middle, and then my triangle would go on top, and voila, there's my Dutch windmill and my landscape. Now to make this look even better, I can take a pastel and maybe go in here and add some detail, like the door for the people to go in. And I can also add some detail for the arms of the windmill. Just give that little added bonus of making your piece look even more interesting. And then I would go ahead and glue them down, and voila, there is my windmill landscape. And we are using the artist Claude Monet to inspire us, and we used different types of medium to make a mixed medium landscape. And don't forget that beautiful horizon line that we used in the middle to separate our sky from our land. So thanks for joining me painting our Claude Monet.